The first day of Silent Sight was early morning on set. The sun had not yet reached the valley, but the crew was already buzzing like a beehive. Lights were being adjusted. Cables crisscrossed the ground like veins. People moved quickly, professionally, and without much talking. The new film was already behind schedule, and every second felt heavy. Ana de Armas stood alone near her trailer. She wasn't late, she wasn't lost, but she felt like a ghost in her own body. For the first time in months, her smile didn't come naturally. Her eyes, always alive, seemed distant now. Her makeup was perfect, her dress flawless. But something inside her felt out of place, like a note in a song that didn't belong. She looked around quietly. Everyone else seemed to have purpose. Someone shouted for a lens. It's about a stunt. No one noticed that she hadn't said a word since she arrived. Keanu Reeves arrived on set just minutes later. No entourage, no spotlight. He wore a simple black jacket and jeans. His face looked calm, but his eyes searched. He greeted the lighting crew by name, helped a grip lift a heavy case. He didn't just show up, he entered with intention. When he spotted Ana from a distance, he slowed down. Something about the way she stood struck him. She wasn't talking. She wasn't moving, just staring at the mountains beyond the studio lot. He walked up to her gently. He didn't say good morning. He didn't force a smile. He simply stood beside her. She glanced at him for a second, then looked back toward the hills. Silence stretched between them like an invisible thread. It's beautiful. Keanu finally said, looking at the same mountains. Ana nodded slowly. Her lips moved slightly, but no words came out. He didn't push. Instead, he waited. Not for her to speak, but for her to feel safe. After a long pause, she whispered, "I miss home, Cuba," he asked. She nodded. Then after another long pause, she said, "And something else. I don't know what it is." Keanu didn't respond right away. He looked down at the ground, then back at her. "Sometimes it's not about knowing," he said softly. "Sometimes it's just about letting the silence be okay." Ana turned to him. Her eyes welled up, not with tears, but with something deeper recognition. Someone finally understood that her silence wasn't emptiness. It was full of feelings she couldn't name. A production assistant called for them. The director was ready. The makeup and lighting were done. The scene was supposed to be intensa. Dramatic walk through a burning field. Heavy dialogue. Big emotions. But Ana's head wasn't there. As they walked toward the set, Keanu gently placed his hand near her elbow. Not to guide her, but to remind her he was still there. They reached their mark.
The cameras rolled. The fire machines roared to life.
The heat was intense. The moment was perfect. But just as the director shouted action, Keanu paused. His eyes went down to Ana's feet. Her shoelace had come undone. In that split second, everything slowed. A few people noticed. A few D in quotes. Keanu didn't hesitate. He knelt down quietly in the middle of the set in front of everyone, tied Ana's shoelace. No ego, no joke. No hurry, just kindness. Everyone froze. Cameras were still rolling, but no one cared about the shot anymore. The air felt different. Ana looked down, shocked, her mouth slightly open. It wasn't just about the shoelace. It was the way he did it with care, like a friend who saw her even when she didn't see herself. The director didn't yell. The crew didn't move. It was as if the world held its breath. When he stood back up, he gave her a small nod. Safety first, and he whispered. She smiled. A real smile. Not because someone expected it, but because someone had finally seen her. And that moment, simple, quiet, human, became the beginning of something much deeper than any scene they would film that day. That night, the crew couldn't stop talking about it. The media didn't catch it. No cameras snapped the moment. It wasn't on social media. But for everyone who was there, something changed. Ana didn't say much for the rest of the day. But when Keanu walked by her during lunch, she looked up and said softly, "Thank you."
Bye.
He simply nodded, his eyes full of gentle understanding. The next morning, Ana came in earlier than usual. Still felt heavy inside, but not alone anymore. She noticed someone had placed a cup of warm tea by her chair. She didn't need to ask who it was. Keanu walked by again that morning, carrying a box of props. He smiled and said, "Ready for take two?" She laughed. A quiet, soft laugh, but real. And just like that, without trying, without force, the silence between them became something warm. It wasn't loud, but it was strong, and it was just the beginning. The wait behind her smiley second day on set began with bright sun and cold wind. It wasn't the kind of weather that made headlines, but it was the kind that made people wrap their jackets tighter and speak less.
Oh, that's...
The crew moved quickly, whispering more than usual. Everyone was thinking about the moment from the day before. Keanu tying Anna's shoelace had left something behind, an energy that hadn't faded overnight. Anna arrived wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a loose braid. She looked calmer, but still quiet. The smile she offered to the costume assistant was small, but it wasn't forced. That alone was enough to make the assistant pause for a second, surprised. Something had shifted. In the back of the studio, Keanu was helping one of the stunt doubles with harness gear. He moved with ease, joking softly, never making a scene. When he saw Anna enter, he gave a slight wave from across the room. She noticed. Her eyes lit up briefly, like a small light flickering in a dark room. Their first scene that day was a tense one, dialogue-heavy, emotionally raw. The characters were supposed to argue, then break down, revealing hidden pain from their pasts. Anna held the script in her hand, but her fingers trembled just slightly. No one else would have seen it, but Keanu did, before the director called action. He leaned close and said, "You don't have to be perfect, just be honest." Anna looked at him, her eyes suddenly wet, and she nodded. It was a small gesture, but powerful. She didn't need direction. She needed space. And he gave her that. The camera rolled. Anna stepped into the role. But this time, something real bled through. Her voice cracked in the middle of a line. Her hands shook as she clutched her co-star's arm. The tears that streamed down her face weren't part of the script. They were hers. Real, raw, unfiltered. The director didn't stop her. He didn't need to. When the scene ended, there was silence. No one clapped. No one moved. The moment hung heavy in the air. Finally, the director said, "Cut." The crew exhaled. Together, like they had all been holding their breath, Anna wiped her face and looked down. She didn't know if what she had done was right. She felt vulnerable, exposed. But Keanu approached slowly and handed her a bottle of water. That, he said gently, was truth. She didn't answer. She'd say, "Instead, instead, instead." She just stared at the water bottle in her hand. No one had ever called her emotions truth before. Usually she heard words like "too much," "not controlled," or "do another take." But not with Keanu. With him, she didn't feel judged. She felt seen that afternoon while waiting for a lighting change. Anna sat on a metal step near one of the trailers. Her knees were pulled up to her chest, and she was staring into space again. Keanu passed by with a clipboard. He paused, then sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated. No. Then slowly she spoke. "I used to cry when I was little," she said, "but they told me I had to stop. I was too sensitive, too dramatic. Even in acting school, they told me to hide it, to control it." Keanu listened quietly, so I did, she continued. "I smiled when I wasn't happy. I laughed when I wanted to scream, and now, I don't even know what's real sometimes." Leaned back, resting his hands on the metal step. "You ever see a river pretend to be a lake?" he asked. She looked at him, confused. "A river flows," he said. "It moves. It's loud, messy, wild. But people try to turn it into a lake still, quiet, calm. And sometimes we forget that the river is still there, underneath." Anna stared at him. That metaphor landed deep. "You're a river," he said. "Simply, don't let them turn you into something still." For a long time, they sat in silence. But this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was healing. Later that day, they had a scene outdoors. The wind had picked up. Dust flew everywhere. The director was shouting over the noise, trying to get the right angles. Anna's hair kept blowing in her face. The stylist rushed over, trying to fix it between takes. Everyone was tense. Time was running out. In the middle of the chaos, Keanu turned to Anna and said, "Let's do something different." He stepped slightly out of his mark, looked directly into her eyes, said his line, not from the script, but from the heart. "If you can't breathe, then I'll hold the sky up for you." Anna froze. That wasn't in the script. The crew was. Confused, but the director let it go. Anna blinked back tears. "T." She whispered her next line, barely audible, but it was perfect. The scene ended. Everyone was silent again. The director called cut, but then added, "That's the one." Anna turned to Keanu, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "You changed the line," she said. He smiled softly. "I didn't. I just said what I would have said if it were real." For the first time since she'd arrived on set, Anna felt something. She hadn't in a long while. Freedom. The freedom to feel, to speak, to be. That evening. After the shoot wrapped, Anna found a small envelope taped to her trailer door. Inside was a folded piece of paper with a quote handwritten in clean, gentle script. "You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes the quietest voice speaks the loudest truth." She didn't need to guess who wrote it. She placed the note in her journal. Right? Sat a photo of her childhood home in Cuba, and that night when she closed her eyes, she didn't feel like a ghost anymore. She felt human and whole. Because sometimes it only takes one person to remind you that your silence is not a Floyd's, just another language waiting to be understood. Echoes of the past third morning felt different. Now the light was softer, the sky gentler. Even the studio, always filled with noise and urgency, felt slower somehow, like it was catching its breath. Anna walked onto the set holding her coffee. With both hands, the warmth of the cup grounded her. Her smile came easier now, but it still had shadows behind it. Healing, as she had learned, didn't come like a wave. It came like rain, quiet, steady, and often unnoticed. Keanu was already there, helping the costume designer fold jackets that weren't even his. He greeted her with a nod and a soft morning. There was no need for more. Between them, silence had become a kind of language. She liked that. But beneath the calm surface, something old was beginning to stir. That day's scenes were emotional. Flashbacks? Her character was supposed to remember a childhood of fear, loss, and strength. The director had told her, "Pull from something real if you can." But he didn't know how real it might become. During makeup, Anna stared at her own reflection. The artist gently applied a fake bruise to her cheek, meant to show a fictional past of struggle. But as she watched it form in the mirror, something in her chest tightened. It reminded her of a real bruise, not on her skin, but in her memory. She was 13. Back in Havana, she had just told her uncle she wanted to become an actress. He had laughed. "We don't have that luxury," he had said. "People like us don't dream." That memory had stayed. Hidden for years, but now, in a cold trailer, thousands of miles away, it rose again, invited, sharp, and alive. Anna excused herself. She walked outside quickly, past the cameras and crew, into a small space behind the lighting truck. No one followed except Keanu. He didn't say anything. He just stood a few steps behind, giving her space, but not letting her feel alone. She leaned against the metal side of the truck, eyes closed, breathing shallow. "You okay?" when he asked softly. She shook her head. "Do you want to talk?" She hesitated, then whispered, "It's strange. Sometimes when you pretend to be someone else, you remember who you really are." He took a few steps closer. "Acting does that." He said, "It breaks down walls. Sometimes the ones we didn't even know we built." Anna turned to him slowly. "Did that ever happen to you?" Keanu looked down, then away, like he was looking through the truck. "Through the ground, through time. My best friend died when we were in our 20s, he said. "I was shooting a movie at the time. Action scenes, explosions, fake smiles. I couldn't breathe, but I didn't stop. I didn't know how." Anna's eyes widened. She hadn't known. I showed up. He continued, did my lines, hit my marks, but inside, I was broken. It took me years to admit that. Anna looked at him, her voice small. How did you keep going? He met her eyes. I didn't keep going. I started again. Slowly, piece by piece. One truth at a time. That hit her like a soft wind quiet, but strong enough to shift something inside. They went back to set. The scene began. Anna stepped into the frame. But this time she didn't pretend. She remembered the streets of Havana, the smell of her grandmother's cooking, the silence in her room after arguments, the sound of her own breath when she first dreamed of Hollywood. And then she cried, not for the camera, not for the script, but for the little girl who never believed she could. Keanu, playing the older version of her friend in the scene, didn't say his next line. Instead, he reached for her hand, unscripted, their fingers locked, and the moment became real. The director let the camera roll for 2 extra minutes, even after the lines ended. When he finally called cut, he whispered, we're keeping that. The crew didn't clap, but their silence was loud after the shoot. Anna sat in her trailer, the script resting on her lap but untouched. A knock came at the door. It was Keanu, K, holding a small notebook. I brought you something, he said. She took it and opened the first page. Inside was a list of quotes, handwritten, each one about silence, truth, and strength. These help me, he said. Maybe they'll help you too. Anna didn't speak. She simply reached forward and hugged him, a real hug. Not the quick, polite kind, but the kind that said, you saved a part of me. That night, as Anna wrote in her own journal, she looked at the notebook he gave her. Then she wrote something new, something she hadn't written in years. I am enough. Not because someone told her, but because someone showed her. And that truth, that quiet, undeniable truth, echoed louder than any applause. The storm behind the Smoleith 4th day on set began with unexpected clouds. Not the soft, drifting kind, but thick ones, dark, heavy, filled with promise and warning. Rain wasn't forecasted, but everyone could feel it coming. The crew worked faster, hoping to beat the weather. The energy was tense but focused. Even laughter felt forced that morning. Anna arrived wrapped in a long black coat. She looked stronger now, her steps more sure, her eyes more alert, but beneath her strength, something fragile remained. A message had arrived on her phone earlier, a voice memo from someone she hadn't spoken to in years, her father's cousin. He was in town. He had read about the film, remembered her as a little girl who used to dance barefoot on the roof during storms. He wanted to meet. Her hands trembled as she listened. He was the last person who had truly seen her father before he passed. And suddenly, memories flooded back. The scent of motor oil from her father's workshop. The way he hummed old boleros while fixing broken radios. The time he gave her a tiny silver key and told her, this will open your future, even if you don't know what door it fits yet. Still carried that key in her wallet. As she stepped onto set, Keanu noticed immediately. You all right? He asked, his voice as calm as ever. She nodded, but her nod was too quick. You sure? She paused, then whispered, I remembered something about my dad today. Something I forgot I missed. Keanu didn't ask what. He simply offered her a seat beside a heater while the camera team adjusted their lenses. Memories aren't always soft, he said. Sometimes they come back with teeth. Anna looked at him, but sometimes they feel like a hug, too. He smiled. Exactly, their scene that day was supposed to be quiet. Shh. No dialogue. Just 2 people walking in the rain. Lost in thought. It was meant to be poetic, subtle, but nature had its own plan. Before the first take, the wind picked up sharply. Clouds rolled fast above them. Then, without warning, the sky opened. Rain poured hard. The fake rain machines hadn't even been turned on yet. Some of the crew ran for cover. Lights were quickly wrapped in plastic. The director yelled over the sound, but his voice was lost to the wind. Anna stood still, frozen, not from the cold, but from the feeling. Rain like this heavy, Honest brought her back to childhood rooftops, bare feet spinning under gray skies. She didn't move, and Keanu. He didn't move either. He stepped beside her, completely soaked, and stood still. Not as an actor, but as a friend. She closed her eyes, lifted her face to the sky, and let the storm wash over her. The cameras kept rolling. No one yelled cut, because no one could. What they captured in that moment wasn't a scene. It was truth, pure, emotional truth. Anna's tears mixed with the rain. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, not from acting, but from release. Keanu didn't speak. He just placed his hand gently on her shoulder, and she leaned into it, letting go of whatever weight she had carried. Alone, the rain slowed after 10 minutes. The director finally called out, "Wrap it." But his voice cracked. So did the cinematographers, because they had all witnessed something real after the shoot. Anna sat inside her trailer, wrapped in towels, sipping ginger tea. Keanu brought her a dry blanket without asking. "You okay?" he said again. She looked up. "I feel like I just told a secret I didn't know I had." He nodded. "Those are the important ones." Anna looked down, then whispered, "I thought I had to be strong all the time. That if I cried, people would see me as weak." "Crying isn't weak," Keanu said. "It's proof that you're still trying." Later that evening, Keanu found a small bag outside his trailer. Inside it was a folded towel, still warm from a heater, and a handwritten note from Anna. "Thank you for standing in the rain with me. I didn't know how much I needed that." He smiled when he read it, not because he wanted thanks, but because it meant she was healing. The next day was forecasted to be sunny again, but Anna would never forget that. Stormed out because it interrupted the film, but because it gave her back a part of herself. The barefoot girl from Havana, the daughter of a man who believed in silver keys and silent strength, and the woman who, for the first time, no longer felt like she had to face her storms alone. The kindness no one saw. The fifth morning was quiet, too quiet. The set felt still, almost delicate, like the day itself didn't want to be disturbed. Anna arrived wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans. No makeup, no jewelry. There was something grounded in her steps, as if she had returned to herself after years of drifting. The girl who once danced barefoot in Havana now walked like she carried both the storm and the sunlight within her. Keanu noticed. From the way she tied her hair to the way she greeted the crew, everything felt different. "You slept well?" he asked gently. "I did," she replied, then smiled. "No dreams, just peace." But peace, as they both knew, never lasted long. On a film set, that day was the most important shoot yet, a long emotional scene between their two characters. It was supposed to be about forgiveness, truth, and vulnerability. Weeks of rehearsals had led to this. Everyone was watching, but just before the cameras rolled, a crew member whispered something into the director's ear. The director's eyes shifted. His face changed. Then he walked over to Anna. "We've got an issue," he said carefully. Magazines leaked some behind-the-scenes shots. They're spinning a story. "About you and Keanu," Anna's face. The words hit like cold water. Keanu stepped in, calm but firm. "What kind of story?" "They're calling it a secret romance," the director said. "Claiming you two are faking this emotional connection for publicity." Anna's hands began to shake. The silence she'd worked so hard to come out of was suddenly being twisted into noise she never asked for. Keanu could see it happening. Her shoulders tightened. Her eyes pulled back into that guarded place. He looked the director in the eye. "We'll be right back." Without waiting, he gently guided Anna off set, past the cameras, past the crew, into the back corridor where no one else stood. She didn't say a word, but her breathing was fast. "They don't get to take this from you," Keanu said softly. Anna looked at him, confused. "Your truth? Your silence? Your healing? They don't get to turn it into gossip." "But they already did," she said. "And they'll keep doing it." Keanu paused, then asked, "Do you remember what I said about the river? That people try to turn it into a lake?" She whispered. "Yes," he said. "But no matter how much they try, a river is still a river. It moves forward. Always." Her eyes softened. The pain was still there, but so was the strength. They can write what they want, he added. But they can't change what's real. Anna looked away, her voice low. I hate feeling misunderstood. You're not alone in that, he said. Most people are just trying to be heard without shouting. You're doing that. They stood in silence for a moment, then, quietly, Anna said, Thank you, again. Keanu smiled. You don't have to keep saying that. I see you. It's enough. They returned to set. The crew was tense. The director looked nervous, but then something remarkable happened. Anna stepped into the scene with more presence than anyone had ever seen. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. It was alive with truth. Keanu matched her beat for beat when their characters embraced. It wasn't just acting. It was two people holding on to something honest in a world that often rewards the fake. When the scene ended, no one moved then, slowly. Applause gentle at first, then louder. Even the sound operator clapped. Tears in her eyes, the director stepped forward, voice low but sincere. We got it. Anna walked off set and sat alone on a bench near the makeup trailer. She wasn't crying. She was breathing deep, full breaths. Keanu sat beside her after a few minutes, holding something in his hand. What's that? She asked. He handed her a small worn photo. It was old, faded at the edges. A picture of a girl, young brown hair in curls, standing in front of a tiny blue house. My sister, Keanu said quietly. She passed away years ago. Anna looked at the photo with care. I keep it with me, he continued, not because it keeps the pain away, but because it reminds me how much love can survive, even when people don't. Gently, her eyes full. Thank you for sharing that with me, she whispered. Keanu nodded. And thank you, he replied, for letting me see you. That night, neither of them spoke much. But before Anna left the set, she walked over to the trailer board where crew messages were posted. She wrote something on a small piece of paper and pinned it where everyone could. See, it read, Kindness doesn't need proof, just needs to be real. The crew read it the next morning, and from that day on, the mood on set shifted. Less noise, more care, less pretending, more truth, all because one man noticed a shoelace and chose to kneel not for attention, but for kindness. The last Takath final day of filming arrived before anyone felt ready for it. The sun rose slow and golden, casting soft light across the hills behind the studio. The morning air was crisp, like it was holding on to something precious. Something that didn't want to end. Anna stood near her trailer, holding the same notebook Keanu had given her weeks earlier. Its pages were now filled, quotes, scribbles, drawings, even pieces of her own story that she was finally brave enough to write down today. They were filming the closing scene of the movie. A quiet goodbye between two friends, but behind the camera. The real goodbye was much harder. Anna had grown in ways she couldn't explain. It's not just as an actress, but as a person. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to hide behind smiles or polished interviews. For the first time, she felt free to speak, or not speak, and still be understood. And Keanu. He remained as steady as always, present, kind. Never too loud, never too far. They were both early to set. They didn't need to rehearse. They just needed to breathe together one more time. As the crew prepared the shot, the director gave a small speech. He thanked everyone, praised the team, and then paused when his eyes landed on Keanu and Anna. What you two brought to this film, he said slowly, can't be faked. Came from something deeper, and I hope the world sees that. Anna looked down, humbled. Keanu placed a hand on her back, brief but grounding. The scene began. No words, just a walk. Their characters moved slowly across a garden path, leaves falling gently around them. Then, at the last moment, Anna's character paused and looked down. One shoelace had come undone. It wasn't scripted. It just happened. The crew waited. The director raised his hand, ready to cut, but Keanu knelt down again, just like he had on that very first day. No one spoke. He tied her shoelace with calm. Careful fingers then stood, They held eye contact for a full 3 seconds. The camera captured it all. The scene ended. Cut, the director said, voice soft. That's the one. Silence followed, then applause, and then stillness again. Anna stepped out of frame, blinking back tears. She wasn't sure why she felt so much. It wasn't just about the film. It was about everything it had given her. The courage to speak. Again, the strength to feel without fear. The knowledge that even in silence, she was heard. The crew slowly began packing up. People hugged, cried, took pictures. It was the usual end of production. Chaos but Anna stayed close to Keanu. They found a quiet spot near the back lot, the same place where weeks ago she had stood frozen in silence. You okay? He asked for the last time. She smiled. I am. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver key her father had once given her. I used to think this would unlock a door to somewhere big, she said, but I think now, maybe it was meant to unlock something inside me. Keanu nodded, understanding without needing to ask more. She handed him the key. I want you to have it. He hesitated. Are you sure? Yes, she said, because you helped me find what it was meant to open. He took the key gently, then tucked it into the front pocket of his jacket. I'll keep it safe, he promised. They hugged, no cameras, no crowd, just two souls who had seen each other in a way few people ever do before they parted ways. Hannah turned and said, You know, people thought we were acting. Keanu smiled. Maybe we were. But it felt real, she added. That's because it was, he said. And with that, they walked off in different directions. Not because the story was over, but because sometimes the truest connections don't need to stay in one place. They just need to be remembered. Weeks later, the movie was released. Critics praised its honesty, audiences cried without knowing why, and in one quiet scene, where a man knelt to tie a woman's shoelace, people felt something they couldn't describe. They didn't know the full story. They didn't need to, because kindness, when it's real, doesn't need an explanation. It just needs to be lived.